In June 2026, 40 million iPhone users discovered that the free 5 gigabytes of free iCloud storage they were using was never designed to be enough, and it was just the bait for a $4 billion trap. And Apple knew exactly what they were doing. iCloud released in October 2011, and in 2011, the 5 gigabyte limit didn't feel insulting. The iPhone 4, which released the year before, had a 5 megapixel camera, in comparison to the 48 megapixel cameras we see today. But anyway, a single photo took up roughly 1 to 2 megabytes, meaning 5 gigabytes of storage could hold several thousand images. Videos on the iPhone 4 were capped at 720p, and while it filled space faster than photos, the 5 gigabytes was manageable for most people's daily use. Apple's marketing at the time reflected that. Apple's own press release described the 5 gigabytes of free iCloud as more amazing than it sounded, pointing out that purchased music and photo streams wouldn't count toward it. The crowd applauded. The 5 gigabyte figure felt like a gift rather than a ceiling. But then the cameras started getting better, much better in fact, because the iPhone 6s introduced 4K video recording in 2015, and if you compare 4K videos to 1080p videos, you can see it takes up roughly 4 times as much space. A single minute of 4K footage at 60 frames per second uses around 400 megabytes of storage. And if you think about this logically, 3 minutes of filming a memory uses around 1.2 gigabytes of storage, which is literally a quarter of your entire free iCloud allowance gone from a single short clip before you've taken a single photo or backed up a single app. And then in 2022, Apple's cameras went further, jumping from 12 megapixels to 48 megapixels on the Pro models, with the base iPhone following later. A single 48 megapixel photograph in the highest quality format takes up roughly 25 to 75 megabytes, depending on the scene. Compare that to the 1 to 2 megabyte photos from the original iPhone 4. And the free storage stayed exactly the same as the day Steve Jobs announced it. For anyone who uses their iPhone's camera the way Apple's own marketing tells them to, 5 gigabytes stopped being a reasonable offering years ago. And Apple knows this because they make the cameras. But the numbers alone don't tell the full story of what the company Which calls a trap. Because Apple actively designed iOS to make you feel the pressure of running out, whilst also failing to improve the free tier as file sizes grew. If you've used an iPhone in the last several years, you have seen the red notification on the Settings app telling you your iCloud storage is almost full, and a prompt asks if you'd like to upgrade to 50 gigabytes for less than £1 a month. These notifications appear consistently at the most psychologically effective moments. And for millions of people, the response to that pressure is to pay 99 pence, because 99 pence a month sounds like almost nothing, and individually, for a single month, it is. But multiplied across 40 million UK users over 8 years, it's the basis for a £3 billion legal case. Now you may be thinking, if iCloud is expensive or full, why not just use Google Drive, Dropbox, or even OneDrive instead? Because they're all free. And Google Drive even gives you 15 gigabytes for free, 3 times what Apple offers at no cost. And here's where the legal argument begins. Because you can install Dropbox or Google Drive on your iPhone, you can back up your photos to Google Photos, you can save documents to OneDrive. All of that is technically possible. But what you cannot do is use any of them to perform the core function that iCloud provides by default, the full system backup of your device. The backup that stores your settings, your app data, your messages, your saved passwords, your device state, the one that lets you restore your iPhone completely when you lose or break your phone. That backup is locked to Apple's ecosystem through a combination of technical restrictions that no third-party cloud service has been permitted to replicate. So when you set up a new iPhone, the practical path for a normal user runs directly through iCloud. If your free 5 gigabytes are full and you haven't paid for more, that path runs straight into a payment screen, and Apple is right there waiting with the upgrade button. In November 2024, the UK consumer group Which filed a claim against Apple at the Competition Appeal Tribunal. The argument was that Apple had deliberately used its control over the iPhone's operating system to make iCloud the only practical choice for the most essential backup function, and having engineered that dependency made it so they could charge prices higher than any genuinely competitive market would have produced. And in June 2026, the Competition Appeal Tribunal granted a collective proceedings order, the formal step that allows the group, which to represent nearly 40 million UK users as a group, rather than requiring each person to sue Apple individually. And this is one of the most significant legal milestones a consumer claim can reach in the UK system. And it means a court has formally decided the argument is serious enough to proceed toward a full trial. That trial is expected in 2028. Any final ruling, payout, or settlement is still years away, and the sums involved are estimates rather than confirmed compensation. Which has been explicit about this. The £3 billion represents what they believe affected users are owed, and the £77 per person is what that works out to across 40 million claimants. Whether those numbers survive the legal process intact is something the trial will determine. But the scale of the claim is significant on its own terms. £77 per person maps almost exactly to 6.5 years of monthly 99p iCloud subscriptions at the lowest paid tier. The claim period runs from November 2018 to June 2026, which is roughly 7.5 years. Which is essentially arguing that during that entire period, Apple's UK customers were paying for a service at a price set by a company with no real competition for the one function they most needed it to perform. Annabel Holt, the chief executive of which, stated that the granting of the collective proceedings order means we're one step closer to getting consumers the redress we believe they are owed from Apple. And this should send a strong message to any other companies using anti-competitive tactics. The specific legal allegations are worth understanding, because Which isn't simply arguing that Apple charges too much for storage in general. The argument goes further than that. Which says Apple achieved the alleged monopoly through 3 connected methods. First, by technically restricting how certain files can be stored on an iPhone, so that system backups only flow through iCloud. Second, by tying iCloud deeply into iOS devices so it becomes the default and obvious choice for every new setup. And third, by using iOS prompts, notifications, and system design to steer users toward their own service while making competing services harder to use for the same purpose. This issue is quite similar to what became known as Batterygate. The iCloud case follows the same path. Apple using software control over its own devices to create a financial outcome that benefits Apple, while users remain largely unaware that the design was deliberately producing that result. In both cases, Apple's defense has been that the behavior was either technically necessary or ultimately in the user's best interest. However, regulators and courts have disagreed enough to let the case proceed.
Apple's official response to the lawsuit has been brief every time a journalist has asked about it. We work hard to make iCloud a great experience, but no customer is required to use it, and customers in the UK have plenty of alternatives to choose from. And while this is true, it kind of mirrors the same way that Steve Jobs told users during the AntennaGate crisis to simply avoid holding it that way. Apple tried to block Which from even bringing this case, and the tribunal rejected those efforts. Which itself tells you something. Companies don't spend resources attempting to block cases they're entirely confident they can win on the merits. And the iCloud lawsuit is a long way from being the only legal front Apple is currently defending. In late 2025, Italian competition authorities handed Apple a fine of $115 million over its app tracking transparency practices, ruling that Apple had abused its dominant position. In Brazil, regulators forced Apple to open third-party app stores and reduce its commission rates on the App Store, and Apple complied. And at the EU level, Apple has already been handed a fine of €500 million for violations of the Digital Markets Act, with further investigations ongoing. The iCloud case is the one that puts it most directly in financial terms. £3 billion, 40 million people, 8 years of alleged overcharging. and a trial date of 2028 that means those 40 million people will be waiting at least another 2 years to find out whether a court agrees with them. If you're in the UK, you are automatically included unless you opt out by October 8th, 2026. Let me know in the comments how much you currently pay for iCloud every month. And if you want to know about the time Apple's updates literally bricked millions of phones, check out this video right here.